right, all right, all right. This ain't just a show. This is a platform. Veteran built, battle tested. Welcome to the MisFitNation. Yeah! In a room, built from boots on the ground, now we breaking the rules. 2 vets, 1 leader, painting the sound, turn scars into sermons, let them echo around. Artists with truth, musicians with fire, actors backstage chasing something higher. Entrepreneurs bleeding just to get ahead. If you fought for your dream, yeah, you are what you said. If they told you no, if you still came back, if you fell to your knees but you stayed on track, this is your voice, this is your flame. Say it loud, remember the name. No salvation, just elevation. We rise again. From the fight, to the end. We are the MisFitNation. No damn labels, no damn cages. If you're still breathing, you belong. Turn it up, this is our song. Yeah, this is our song. Yeah. Veterans standing with ghosts in the chest. First responders running in while the world second guess. Gold star names carved deep in the soul. Your story ain't over, we carry the whole. Coaches teaching mindset, breaking the chains, turning barely alive into owning the pain. Truth over polish, scars on display. If it's real, let it bleed, that's the misfit play. If it's heavy right now, in the dark feels cold. If it's heavy right now, in the dark feels cold. If it's heavy right now, in the dark feels cold. It's Aubrey right now, we're the more than you know. Don't walk alone. Veterans press 1, bring it home. Don't trade forever for tonight. You're still needed in this fight. We are the MisFitNation, built from scars and dedication. We rise again. From the fight, to the end. We are the MisFitNation. Every voice is fabrication. From the silence to the scream, we're strong. Welcome home, you belong.
All right. Welcome back to the MisFitNation Thursday after dinner edition. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. We know you have other places you could be. It's March Madness. I know everyone's teams are out there, or the team that you're rooting for now is out there. Some scares already today. Dukies almost lost today, but they fought off at the end for a very close win against Siena. Siena? That's right, Siena from the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference, the MAC, where St. Peter's College lies in wait for next year. But you're here tonight, and we thank you for it. Remember, keep those who are in harm's way in your thoughts, in your prayers as they go through this thing over there. And let's get at it tonight. Tonight on the MisFitNation, we welcome Daryl Dittmer. He's an entrepreneur, a writer, and coach whose philosophy on life is rooted in experience, discipline, and personal accountability. Raised in a blue-collar family where hard work was simply expected, he spent decades building businesses and learning the hard truths about success, failure, and personal responsibility. Today, he teaches a simple but powerful message that clarity, self-respect, and meaningful life all begin when you decide to do one thing, and that's show up. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's welcome Daryl Dittmer to the MisFitNation show. Welcome, Daryl.
Thanks, Rich. Appreciate you having me, man.
It's great to have you here. I was getting a little worried when you weren't there for a while. You showed up right at the buzzer, so better late than never, I guess. Awesome to have you here. Daryl, I just gave basically the elevator pitch on you there. If you don't mind, reach back into your Wayback Machine. Give us a little more about you from as far back as you want to go to how we got here.
Yeah, absolutely. Born in the Midwest, and it seemed like everybody's dad at that time. My dad was a mechanic, Korean War veteran, and pretty tough dude. And we grew up with having to work ethic. I remember I was 14 years old, 13 or 14, and after church one day, he put me in front of a farmer and he said, "Can you put him to work?" And the farmer's like, "Yeah, I can put him to work." And that sort of began my Protestant work ethic life, and that's really what's carried me through this life in many instances in terms of my desire and willingness to do the difficult things. And I didn't know what all those difficult things were going to be, but I found out, and I still try to do difficult things, even though many of my experiences in this life have been wonderful because of the work ethic that I was taught. So I was 13 years old. I got involved in drinking and drugs, and that escalated pretty quickly to the point, and I'm not going to go into a whole bunch of detail, but just, suffice it to say that by the time I was 18, there was a intervention done on me and by the family, and I ended up in drug and alcohol treatment, and I was completely lost. I was clueless. I felt like my soul was being grated, on a cheese grater, and I wasn't living the way I was taught to live, and it was just it was not a pretty time in my life, but a lot of times, we got to go through the stuff before we can actually do what it takes to change and to make life different for ourselves. And that was the opportunity that I had getting out of drug and alcohol treatment. And my life since that time has been about improving me. What are the disciplines that I need to undertake on a daily basis to make sure that I don't go back to drinking, I don't go back to drugs, I don't go back to, just the behaviors and the lying and the cheating and the stealing and the crime and all the stuff. And that's been what my life is about, and trying to teach other people the same things. Like, life can be a really cool ride if you show up, and it can be a really difficult ride if you don't. And that's what I teach people today.
That is outstanding. And knowing, Midwest values, it's usually parents in our age were a little harder on us, Northeast, Midwest, and they taught us values to do things. And when you started going down that wrong path, I'm sure it didn't make them happy, but at 18, they still loved you enough to step in and help you out, and showed you that people do care about you and there is a better way. And now you've carried that for a long time now to help others and show them that with that discipline, with that truth, and having that courage to show up, you can also have a great life. And that's amazing.
Yeah. I'm continually grateful for the people that have been in my life and that helped me. And at some point, for me, and I think for a lot of people that I've known over the years, there isn't a whole lot left to do than try to give back. And I think that's a really crucial thing to round out our lives. I can't just, take from my mentors and take from the people in my life. I have to give something back, and I have to complete that circle. And, when they're finally kicking dirt on me, I want that to be something that I have, I've helped more people than helped me. I've given back more than was given me. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Heck yeah, that's what we need more of. And the giving back and the life lessons. Like I tell people all the time, we can't take our lessons with us to the grave. You got to share what you've learned so that others don't make those same mistakes you made, or maybe the successes you had, so they can be even more successful than you have been. And that's a legacy that you can live to others. And it shouldn't have to wait until we have that dirt going on top of us. It could be every day as you sit down and have coffee at the local coffee shop and maybe just talk to somebody and mentor them. You can do that all the time. And I think you're doing that just by your being and your coaching and your podcast and your authoring. All these things you're doing are giving back to others, or giving to others, so that they don't have to suffer how you did when earlier in your life, and take those lessons learned. And I think more of us need to do that.
I think it's a wonderful, I'm amazed how I feel, even if I'm, somebody's in their head, you're in your head about some stuff that's bugging you, whatever. And you have an opportunity to smile at the cashier or strike up, like you said, strike up a conversation with someone, and you don't because you're in your head. And so I have to get myself to a point where I don't need to worry about me anymore. I don't need to be in my head anymore. I don't need to be thinking about all the stuff that's going on. I want to turn that around and just help other people. My time, and I don't mean this in a flippant way, but like, look, I've been through some stuff, and I'm ready to do things differently for other people. And hopefully, a lot of times it takes what it takes when people get their lessons, right? But if I can shorten one of those lessons, make it a little less painful, and spread that around to where, maybe I end up saving somebody's life. Maybe somebody, because of something I did, decides that life is worth living again. And there's nothing better than that, man. It's just, that's a really cool feeling to think that I could have a part in things like that.
Definitely. And I think like I said, you're doing it with all the avenues you're in right now. And how did you get the idea to, one, start writing, two, get the podcast going, the website, and the coaching? When in what order did that happen? And was it just all this, I'm going to do it, or, hey, let's have a good calculated plan and do this?
I'm not much of a planner. I'm about 20 years ago, I didn't get married till I was 39. So my wife, and she was my, I guess, fiance at that time, but I was telling her some stories of my youth and some of the things that we used to do, and, the drugs and just whatever, just the stuff, the stupid things. And she's looking at me and she's like, man, because I had been around, in recovery for like 20 years at that time. And she's like, man, that's just not you. I'm not seeing it. And I don't see that guy. And I'm like, remind me to write a book someday. So that was the start of the book thing. And it literally took me about 18 years till after COVID, till I was like, you know what? We moved actually from Massachusetts down to Georgia. I see the 413 there. From Massachusetts down to Georgia. And I had some time. We sold some business interests and, properties and things like that. And within 3 months, I had written one book, and then I just kept going. So I wrote another one. And then I found out that marketing books is difficult, like you gotta get out there. So they're like, oh, go be a guest on podcasts and start your own podcast and this and that. Like, all right, I'll do that. And so I did those things, and that's been a really cool journey because I meet really cool people, and develop friendships and that sort of thing. And then the coaching just sort of became a natural progression after the podcast. And I don't know what's next, but it's a lot of stuff. I'm just about to start another book, and whatever I can do to try to get through to people.
Definitely. I think you are getting through to people just by having your stuff out there. And of course, putting yourself out there on other podcasts, hosting your own podcast. That's one thing. Putting yourself out there on other people's podcasts to share your story like you are tonight, that puts your face in front of a whole different audience and builds that network and builds the tentacles out to other people to maybe help them. And like we say on our show all the time, if each episode we reach one, we can teach one. So tonight, if you're expounding knowledge and it reaches one of the Misfit Nation and it teaches them something, me and you just had a successful conversation, a successful show. And that's all. That's what this is all about.
Absolutely. And I appreciate that, Rich. I really do. I appreciate you having me on because that's all I really want to do is reach. And the really cool thing about doing my best and doing our best to live the right way and to help other people is sometimes you don't even know you're helping people. And you are, as long as you're carrying the right attitude. I look at it like, what's the product that I'm putting on the street every day? And the product is me. And
Right.
what am I putting out there on the street every day? And how am I acting toward people? And I saw something a day or two ago that said, are you teaching your children to do the things that you do? And are you proud of that? And that's absolutely it. But it just doesn't count for children. It counts for everybody. It counts for, people wherever I am. If I'm doing the right things, then I'm living the right way, and I'm telling the truth to other people, and I'm telling the truth to myself, and I'm reaching out when people need help, and getting out of myself, and showing up for my own life is where it starts. Then, it's just this ball that keeps on rolling, and getting on, shows like MisFitNation. You just pick up people along the way, right? And it just gets bigger and bigger. And that's what I want to do is affect the world in a positive way as much as I can.
Definitely. It becomes like that snowball, that avalanche ball coming down the hill. It starts that real small thing, and by the time it hits the bottom, it's huge. And that's the goal of everything all of us do that are putting good, positive things out there, is to build that momentum, to maybe get other people to have that positive outlook on life, and spread it to our communities, and spread it to our neighborhoods, and make sure everyone is having that positive outlook and stop being in that negative headspace.
Yeah, and there are things that I know people can be confused, and it's easy to be confused when you're younger. And I really like to help younger people, because I was young when I first got involved in recovery and making a real attempt to change my life. And I want people to know that, you don't have to accept where you're at, and you can move to a different place, and you can expand what it is you believe about your life and the world, and you can build a life. I started in this life, and my world was really small. And because I started to believe, and because I had mentors that helped me believe in a larger life, in expanding everything in my life therefore became really freaking big. And I don't say that as an ego thing at all. I just say that because that's what's available to everybody, no matter where you are right now. So I think that's an important message to impart, because sometimes young people, especially today, feel stuck, and they don't feel like there's any way out of it. But I'm here to tell you there is.
It's a good point with the younger generation. Not only do they feel stuck, they're chasing something that's not really there. Well, it's on their phone, it's on social media. They're chasing some magical number of likes or magical number of followers that gives them that valuation. But that's not what you need. That's not what they need. And I think if you pull that away from them just for a little bit, I don't say go cold turkey or throw it away, because there's good uses for it. Just step back from it and see what life really is a little bit outside of that little box, and then come back in and find that you do have value outside of those numbers. And then all that stuff won't matter anymore, unless of course that's your livelihood. But other than that, you're just trying to get likes and have something. I have X amount of followers. Get out of that mindset and get into a mindset of there's a whole big world out 3 inches away from that thing if you look up.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of, satisfaction, I suppose, with how we measure success these days, which is interesting, because it's not, success is not likes.
Right.
I'm sure you can make some money doing it, that sort of thing, but success is, how am I in here, and how am I in here? Am I feeling like I'm going to wake up in the morning and enjoy my life? Or am I scared to death because I hate my job, and I hate this and I hate that? And that's what makes life, is how I wake up in the morning feeling. And there are a lot of ways to affect that, without a doubt. There are a lot of ways to affect that. And it's just a matter of finding out how. There's a ton of wisdom that I leaned on when I was younger, and that my mentors introduced me to, which really helped me expand what I was able to think about and believe and at least consider in my life. So I'm a huge fan of exploring successful people, but I don't just mean financial success. I mean successful people from the perspective of how they go about their lives. You know, are they helping? Are they peaceful? Do they have, you know, a quiet mind? How are their relationships? Do they have a meaning or a purpose? There's a lot of wisdom out there to follow, and I highly recommend finding something like that to follow.
Definitely. And usually if you find that wisdom and you find that person, place, or thing to follow, you can also find your purpose. Like you found your purpose in coaching and encouraging others. There's other things that you can find purpose in. And I think, well, like you just said, find it out. It's out there. Search that wisdom. There's so much knowledge out there just waiting for you to grasp at. You can reach out and grasp that knowledge and become a little better inside. And then you'll want to expand it and find that purpose. What do I want to find now? I found this little tidbit of information. I want to find out what that tidbit of information can do for me and make me feel even better tomorrow.
Right. You know, there are practices in this life that we can engage in, and, you know, very simple things, and it, you know, we'll have to replace something that we currently do. But I think in this life, we can spend so much time doing things that net nothing for us, you know, scrolling on the phone and watching TV and all kinds of crazy stuff that, you know, and I'm not saying those are bad things at all. They're not. But if I can take a little bit of that time and apply it to something else that's capable of changing what's going on in here, then I'm accomplishing something for myself, and the results will be apparent, and they'll be apparent fairly quickly.
Definitely. And once you start seeing those positive results, or hopefully little incremental results as they move forward, because if they're huge at first, you'll get this other mentality where I have to keep getting those huge gains all the time, or then I'm a failure. But incremental successes along the way, or incremental changes, can make you do so many better things along the way. They say it takes 21 days to build a habit to make things stay or stick. It might take those 21 days to build those incremental victories and stack those victories as they move forward. And those little habits and that little tidbits of knowledge every day, nuggets of knowledge, to be the better person, or the person they really choose to be in their future.
Yeah, and you know, I think some people sometimes think they don't have a choice. Like, hey, I grew up in this family, I'm this religion, I'm this political persuasion, I'm all of these things, and it's like, well, you can look at that stuff. You know, that's one of the things that I had to do when I was younger is, and I explain it like I took my belief system and I kind of threw it out on a table, and I was like, okay, what's working for me and what's not? And I need to keep some of these things because they're important, but there are some things I need to jettison from my life in terms of what I believe, so that I can expand that belief system and maybe look into some different things. And that really worked well for me. And I've been open for the rest of my life after that time to like, look, you know, if there's something else that's better for me in terms of a belief system or something that I can use in my life. I'm not married to anything except my wife, of course. But I'm not married to anything from a belief system perspective that can be changed to improve my life or the people that I can help.
Definitely. And when, like you said, we're married to the person we love, but you don't have to be married to every ideology or any belief system. You have to find your niche and then kind of grow with it. Don't stay, I have to do it this way every time, or you're going to wind up hitting a wall. And it's what happens to a lot of people in corporate America. They hit that wall or to hit that ceiling, and they can't get out of it because they always had to do it that one way. Everything has to be done that one way. Like you mentioned about family. If my family did everything this way, I have to do it that way. I think a lot of our generation, Generation X, kind of some stayed with it, and then a lot went against the grain and did things a little bit differently than their families, kept their values, but changed up their trajectory in life by just doing things a little bit different to make it a little better for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And you make a great point, Rich, because principles, values, those things are absolutely crucial. What am I look at honesty, humility, and faith. And that's that's sort of the bedrock of my life. And then I apply those things to all of the pieces of my life. And so those things are crucial. Those things are non-negotiable. But there are other things, and I'm not saying anybody needs to change anything that they're not willing to change. But for me, I grew up as a Lutheran, and that was something that I needed to take a really close look at. I needed to decide if that was something that was actually working to help me be better in my life or not. And so all I'll say is I don't characterize myself as a Lutheran anymore, but I would also say that my faith in, God or whatever anybody wants to call it, something bigger than me, is stronger than it's ever been. And because I've seen it work in my life, and so I don't have to put a label on it. And I think that's the key is the label doesn't have to be applied for something to work.
Right. Exactly. That's a hard truth for a lot of people. I grew up staunch Catholic in Northeast, and church every Sunday, no meat on Fridays. I have more faith now probably than I did as a kid because it was forced on me. And now it's not forced on me, so I accept it a lot more. And you hit the nail on the head. You have to believe there's something bigger than you. And I don't care what you worship, as long as you understand there's something bigger than you out there, something greater than you. You'll feel it in your bones, your soul, that you're doing things for a higher purpose at that point. And you're not just doing it to do it. You don't got to do stuff. You get to do things at that point, and you'll have that freedom to be that way.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's huge because, when I first started sorting through my belief system, it was hard for me because I'm like, well, I don't feel like the Lutheran thing is where I'm going to find my, my best place or my best self. And then I was like, well, what is it going to be? And I'm like, well, all right. So I don't make the grass grow.
Right.
I don't make my eyes see.
Right.
I don't make the planets move. So I'm not that freaking cool. Whatever does is a heck of a lot bigger than me and a lot more powerful than me. And so that's kind of where I started. I started at a very rudimentary level in terms of how I was thinking about it. But that morphed into something significantly more powerful, which is the faith I have today. And it's a wonderful thing. And I will say one last thing about faith or in a power bigger than me is I am grateful every single day that I don't always have to be the one driving the bus.
Right.
I'm responsible for my effort and my attitude, and that's what I bring to the table, and I bring it every single day. But results aren't always in my hands, and sometimes they're very rarely in my hands. And I can allow that to be the case now and have that faith and just be grateful that I'm alive and I have opportunities.
I think the saying goes, control that which you can control. And that is where you have understood now to just let go. And hey, I can show up every day. I can give 100% effort and determination, but I can't control the outcome. I control what I do. The outcome comes from either concerted effort or from something else happening. And that's a big lesson for a lot of us to learn.
It is. And it all this stuff, right? It takes time. It takes patience. It takes effort. I was reading, I don't know why I picked up this book again, but The Road Less Traveled, M. Scott Peck, I think it was written in like 1978. And it feels like an ancient book when I picked it up again, because it had been like 40 years since I read it. And the first 3 words in the book, which I remember that being the theme of the book. I didn't remember it being the first 3 words, but the first 3 words are life is difficult.
Yep.
And it's really important to, not that we need to hang our hat on like, oh man, life is difficult and it sucks and, you know, all that kind of stuff. It's understanding that it's not easy. I got to bring some game. I got to bring my commitment to make a better me in this world. And I'm going to go through some pain. And not just the pain that life's going to give me anyway, like people dying or being betrayed or, you know, those kind of things. That stuff's going to happen anyway, but life is difficult when you try. Yep. And because you're constantly going into new frontiers. But it's more difficult if you don't try. Because for me, I've seen people kick the crap out of themselves for years for not trying and not getting results and regretting it. And I would much rather go through the pain of trying and even failing than not trying and regretting it.
Definitely. I think the great Wayne Gretzky once said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And that's
Right on.
exactly what you just said. You have to try. You have to keep putting your best foot forward every day and give that college effort, that go get it, that effort to try to make things happen. Try. Just keep trying. Don't say, oh, it didn't work yesterday. I'm never going to do this again. I'm quitting. That's it. I'm done. Keep putting forward, keep pressing forward, keep fighting. And I think you'll get the results you want.
I tell people, you know, you're not allowed to not try. You're not allowed to not give up, or you're not allowed to give up. You just have to keep showing up every single day. And, you know, sometimes showing up is, you know what, I am going to make my bed today. And that's about all I can do, because I am absolutely trashed. I'm whipped. I can't do anymore. And sometimes it's a small effort that at least I do that. I've shown up. Yep. And sometimes it's, you know what, I'm going to write 70 pages of my book today. I'm going to coach 6 people today. I'm going to, you know, do some major stuff. I'm going to make that call I've been, you know, hesitating to make. I'm going to do something really difficult that I've never done before. You know, there's a showing up that's that too, but the basis and the foundation of showing up is the small building blocks that we do when we don't feel like it, and the little stuff that adds up over time. And man, that's powerful as time goes on, because I can look back and say, you know what? I've been doing it this whole time. I haven't been doing it perfect. I'll never be perfect, but I have also not quit. And that's a great way to feel about life.
Definitely. At that point, you're stacking victories, something we yell about here all the time. Stack your victories daily. And you mentioned make your bed. The first victory most of us have every day is getting out of the bed without, you know, falling down if you're in pain or something. The second victory is pulling that sheet back up, pulling that blanket back up and covering up and getting that bed ready for tonight. And then just start stacking those victories all day long. Each day you're going to have a different number, because every day something's going to go wrong and it'll slow you down a little bit. But you got to keep, like we have said over and over again, keep trying to move forward and make the difference in your life and other people's lives by stacking your victories and help them stack theirs.
And some days it's really hard to show up for yourself. And something I was told early on in recovery is it's really a great day if I've helped someone else. And sometimes the best way to get out of my own head about things, if I'm in my head, and I say this for younger people who might be in their head, you know, sometimes more often than not, because I was, but just go help someone else with something. I don't care if it's helping somebody with their groceries, putting somebody's cart back for them, you know, taking their cart when they're pushing it toward the corral and bringing it up into the store, you know, whatever it is. It doesn't matter what it is, but if there's one small thing you can do to help someone else, at some point, a lot of those things that you're thinking about just go away. And a lot of that stuff that's haunting can just go away because you've gotten out of yourself. It's a great tool.
And it's a great feeling at the end of the day that you've pushed forward, you found that purpose to help others, and you forget about the things that are not working in your life because you've just helped them, and now you see that purpose for yourself. So it's almost a never-ending circle of you helping them to help yourself, and you're still building yourself at the same time.
Yeah, and the hope is, and one of the reasons my book, one of the reasons I wrote the first book and titled it the way I did is because one of my mentors made the statement to me one day as he was watching me fight everything, fight life, fight this, fight that. He was like, Daryl, when you stop fighting, the fighting stops. And I didn't know that. I wasn't aware of that. Like, oh man, it comes back to me. And that was a really cool thing to find out. And that's been, ruminating in me ever since. But I want to pass that message on. I want to pass that on to other people, which is why I titled my book that way, because somebody's going to read that and they're going to be like, they're going to feel exactly the same way I did about it. They're going to be like, wow, I didn't know I was fighting life. I didn't know I was fighting myself. And it shines a light where maybe they were in the dark about it, and their life can change. And then someday maybe they'll pass that on to someone else.
Oh, definitely. And the title of your first book is When You Stop Fighting, the Road You're On is Your Own Asphalt. That's an awesome title. And then tell the audience a little bit about that book, and then we'll go to the second book after.
Yeah, actually, so my first one is When I Stop Fighting. Yeah, no worries. The unexpected joy of getting my head out of my ass.
Yes.
Can I say that?
You already did.
I already did. Sorry. Anyway, so that book is my story. It's in the hope that people can relate to things in my story. They can, see the stories about the drinking and the drugs and how I grew up and the addiction and the treatment and what I've done since that time to change my life and some of the practices and habits and the things that I've learned. The back third of the book is a lot of the lessons that I learned over this past few decades of really being engaged with life. And I want people to be able to relate and potentially change their own lives because of that.
And how was that book accepted when it first came out?
It was great. People absolutely loved it. I'm fortunate to have, I don't know how many 100 some, 200 some reviews, whatever, 4.8 stars or something. I think people really have gotten something out of it and continue to get something out of it. And for me, it was, my thinking goes like this. I've got two sons and, now a granddaughter, a couple daughters-in-law, that sort of thing. And I think, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, whatever it is, if somebody picks up that book and they're a family member or not a family member and they get something out of it, that's all I can ask. That's all I can ask from any of my books. And that will make it worth it.
So you got done with that one. Then you went to the one I mentioned, When You Stop Fighting. And what was the nexus of When You Stop Fighting?
It was, it's funny because I just kept writing after I wrote the first one. My wife's like, I think you got like somewhere between 3 and 5 books in you. I'm like, well, if I get one done, I'll be pretty happy. And so anyway, I stopped writing the first one. I was like, there's more in there. And I just kept writing. And so When You Stop Fighting is more geared toward taking a look at, I think, what all of us want in this life, which is meaning or purpose, peace of mind, great relationships, financial security, those kinds of things. And what's stopping us from achieving those things? And then what can we do to move ourselves past and through what's stopping us? And then what life becomes when we're doing that, because life becomes this really cool ride. And I found that my life is 100 times better, if not 1,000 times better than I ever would have imagined. And so that's what I want people to get out of my second book, that it's kind of what we talked about earlier. Look, you can get to what you're looking for in this life and even beyond that. but you have to look at how you're doing your life. And if you're doing it in a way that doesn't contribute to a better life, that's something that has to change so you can get there.
Exactly. And while we're talking, we had a couple of questions come in from the audience. I'll pop them up here for you, let you answer them. First one is from Penel Opie. You've had a wide range of careers and life experiences. What lessons shaped your philosophy the most? Thank you, Penel Opie.
Yeah, thank you for that question. That's a great question. My experiences on the outside of me are as a result of the shaping that happened inside of me. And I would say, and this is going to be weird to say, but I'm really grateful that I got into the drugs and the alcohol, and I didn't harm anybody in a permanent way. There's a lot of things that didn't happen in that ride for me, but it was the most. I reached bottom. There was a time when I wanted to kill myself, and I remember that was December 31st of 1984, and I didn't. But that difficult experience of hitting that bottom and being that depressed and lonely and in really rough shape in here is what allowed me to catapult myself forward. So it really was the most difficult and darkest place of my life that shaped me the most and allowed me to experience and want the most change.
Wow, that's pretty deep. That's Penelope. I hope that answers your question. That was a very good and truthful answer. I love that. Our next one is from someone that steals souls, Ginger Soul. Why do you believe so many people today feel like they are drifting through life without that direction? Thank you, Ginger Soul.
Yeah, thank you, Ginger Soul. That's a great question. I think that our entire life, you remember going back to that book, Life is Difficult, right? The Road Less Traveled. Our entire lives and everything that everybody does, and for the past many, many years, has been in an attempt to try to make life easier. And so we go toward the convenience and we go toward the comfort, and we try to steer ourselves away from the difficult things and from taking chances and taking risks and doing things differently. And I think that's why in a lot of ways people drift because they're just doing what life presents to them instead of doing life in a conscious, decided way. And to find out how to do it in a conscious, decided way, it would take mentors, coaches, exploration of wisdom, a lot of ways to get there. But I think people drift because life is teaching us to try to go towards comfort and not towards difficulty. And we need to face some difficulty, and we need to get through difficulty to feel like we have a meaning and to feel like we have a purpose.
Oh, definitely. I think a lot of people get in that comfort zone and they don't want to leave it because they're comfortable, and that's just human nature. You get where you're comfortable, and everything's going the way you want it to go, and you don't want to test your fate at that time. And I think if some people would test that fate and take those shots we talked about earlier, take those chances, they might see that there's a lot more on the outside, a lot more outside that comfort zone, outside that little box they're living in, and just get out there and do it and see what you can achieve when you take down those binders that you're walking in.
Yeah, one of the things I relied on when I used to have just emotional turmoil, and I would say the first probably 10 years in recovery, it was a very difficult time, and people would say to me, "This too shall pass. Just remember, this too shall pass." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I got it. I'm kind of waiting for this too to pass." And most, it always passed. Sometimes it took longer than others, but the thing that I think people need to understand, and it's important to understand, is the good times pass too.
Yep.
So when you're comfortable and everything seems like cool, and I'm just, sitting by the pool, hanging out, and everything's kind of cool, that's going to go away too. And something's going to be, for me, something bangs on my hood and like, dude, you got to get moving, because things are going to get difficult again. And I need to build myself. And that's one of the things that I needed to do. And I'm a big proponent of, I need to build myself so that I can withstand when life gets difficult and it doesn't crush me. And not to say that I don't, I've had many people die. I've been betrayed. I've had all kinds of bad stuff happen that, with people, family members, all that sort of stuff. But I can pick myself up and dust myself off a lot easier when I've done the things that we've talked about tonight, and not just talking about them, because there's a lot of talk around this stuff, but actually doing the things. And that makes all the difference in the world.
And if you look at the bottom of the screen right now, it highlights what you just said. Don't talk about it, be about it. And that's a great saying. One of our guests gave that to us, and I've kept it there forever. He actually got a tattoo of a bee on his arm because of that saying. Don't talk about it, be about it. So we put a bee on it to remind him of that saying at all times. So we put that up there as a motivational little banner as it goes through the bottom there to keep that saying alive. And I think it helps a lot of people.
Yeah, that's very cool. I have a tattoo on my arm here that it's a tree with deep roots, and the roots are around a rock, and it's an African proverb. But the quote is, when the roots are deep, there is no reason to fear the wind.
Wow.
And I just absolutely love that quote, because that's what we're doing in this life. We're building ourselves to be able to withstand the winds of life. And the longer we're on this planet, the winds blow that much harder because more stuff happens.
Definitely. That's a great saying. I might have to add that to the bottom here soon too. So I might be stealing that off your own, putting it on the banner for next time.
Cool.
We got another question in here. This is from Nuevo New. What role does personal honesty play in building discipline and self-respect? Thank you, Nuevo New.
Yeah, thanks for that question, Nuevo New. It's probably right up to the top, if not the top, of priority number one. And I'm going to say that's being honest with myself. And I think that's what you're saying, because I have to be able to say to myself a lot of different things. And one of those things is, and this is probably the most difficult one, I don't know. Because we always want to have the answers. We always want to, try to be right or try to, nail it, and I don't want anybody to think I don't know what's going on or I don't know the answers, but it's so important to say, I don't know. And saying that about my life and what to do next sometime, I spent many, many, many years not admitting to myself that I didn't know. And there's a surrender aspect to that, to be able to say that I don't know. And even, look, there's a lot of things in life, and I've been addicted to drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, chew, work. I mean, you name it. I've probably been addicted to it, but I'm not anymore. But I have to be able to say to myself, and at times food. So I have to be able to say to myself, like, Daryl, you've been eating, a big bag of Doritos before you go to bed every night now for, months, and you've just gained 30 pounds. What's going on, dude? I have to be able to admit that to myself, take responsibility for it, and change it. And that's all part of, being honest with me about life and about what's going on with me and about my willingness to change. I hope that helps, Nuevo, because that was a great question, pertinent to this work for sure.
I think it's an awesome answer and a very heartfelt answer that you just put out there. That's amazing that you're sharing that, like we had talked about earlier, getting on here and getting your reps on other podcasts and sharing your story to get the word out there to maybe reach more people. And I think it's great that Nuevo asked that question and you were able to knock that out the park like a home run from the World Baseball Classic the other day. So good job.
Thank you.
One last question from the audience here. This is from Cerveza for Me Horses. Your central question is, are you ready to show up? What does truly showing up mean in life? Great question, Cerveza.
Great question, Cerveza. Showing up can mean different things at different times. When I was 19 years old and I was just getting out of drug treatment, I was 18 when they did the intervention. Then I turned 19, went into drug treatment. It was in there for 30 days, inpatient. The only way I was able to show up at that point in my life was to drag myself to a 12-step meeting to make sure that I didn't go to my buddy's house and start doing drugs again, and then showing up became, as time went on, became different. It became, I got to reach out and find new friends. They used to say to me, if you change the game, you got to change the players. I had to change the players. So that was showing up for me. And then I started doing things that were really difficult. I didn't grow up with, really much money at all in my family. And I wanted to go make some money. So then showing up meant taking some risks, doing things that I didn't want to do, doing hard things, making hard phone calls. And then showing up became, I can't leave my room a mess every day. I can't leave my apartment at that time a mess every day. I got to clean up. I got to make the bed. There's a lot of things I got to do. And then I won't make this too long, Rich, but
all right.
But then showing up became, wow, my mind is just going crazy and I can't think straight and I'm emotionally wrecked and I got to slow this thing down. So I had to learn how to quiet myself. I had to learn how to meditate. I had to learn how to do breathing practices because me and dysfunction can be really close friends if I allow myself to jump into that lifestyle again. So I have to calm myself so that I'm good for me. So showing up is going to be different at any different time, any given time in your life. And generally, what needs to be done. And I can't emphasize that enough. From Nuevo's question, honesty with ourselves. We know what needs to be done. The question is, are we going to show up and do it, even if it's just the little stuff for a while? I highly recommend focus on little things first, and then you can build up to bigger things later.
That's a great answer, and I 100% agree. Take those little nail and ankle biters first, win those, and then take the bigger chunk later. And I think that if we all start doing that, we'll see that success that we've been talking about for the last 53 minutes. We've been talking about moving forward and being successful and taking those baby steps to make those giant steps. And I think if people listen and it resonates with them, they will start seeing that there's good things out there that can happen when they put in an effort and show up to put in that effort.
I think there's, to me, there's the lowercase show up, and which can be the little stuff and just stacking those blocks and stacking those blocks and stacking those blocks. Cause then you got a foundation. And a mentor of mine told me a long time ago, he said, once you start on the road, you really can't go back. You might fall back a little bit, but you can't stop once you're committed to the road. And I think that's because of those little building blocks that you build over time, and they stop you from going too far down again. And not to say that people don't, but there's a little bit of a cushion there, which is helpful from doing that work. And then there's the big uppercase showing up, which is the really big stuff, which, that may happen 2 or 3 times a year as opposed to, the everyday building block stuff. So a lot of ways to do it, but I recommend both, but I don't recommend, don't dive in head first to start, because that's the easiest way to quit.
Exactly. Yes. 100%. It goes to those New Year's resolutions.
Right.
Same resolution every year to get to the gym. You jump in those first 2 days and then never go back because it was too hard those 2 days. That's why you don't do it that way. Incremental changes, small incremental changes will help those changes move forward, and you will find the success you're looking for. So, Daryl, we talked about a lot of things tonight. We talked about a lot of things you're doing. What's the best way for the Misfit Nation to get in contact with you or find out more about you if they want to talk to you or have you on their show?
The best place to find me is on my website, which is daryldittmer.com, just the spelling of my name.com. Oh, there we go. And so that's, my website's being turned over. They're doing some new stuff to it, so it's going to change a little over the next 2-3 weeks, but that's the best place to find me. And I really appreciate everyone's questions, and thank you for the questions, because you can always email me if there's an issue or there's something I can help with. That's a tattoo on my arm too, that 1965 Michigan
Nice.
thing. If there's something that I can help with, email me. It's daryl@daryldittmer.com. I will always answer. I love questions. I love to help people. If there's something I can help you out with, just shoot me an email.
Awesome, Daryl. That was a great chat with you tonight. I have one more softball question for you here. I think you're going to knock this question out the park because you've knocked everything else out the park tonight. What's 3 things the Misfit Nation, our audience, our crew, can start doing tomorrow to be better people?
Well, I would say number one is, and it's one of the questions we got, is decide that there's one thing, and it may be a very small thing, that you want to change, whatever that is. Maybe it's, you know what, I'm not going to eat after 7:00 at night, and I'm going to do that for the next 30 days. Pick one thing, commit to it, and do it. Say to yourself, and I think this is really important, it's also something we mentioned, that, you know what, sometimes I don't know, I am going to be open to whatever life shows me to do next. Because I think we get so dialed into, I got to do this, I got to do that, this, that, and we forget to explore, and we forget to challenge ourselves, and we forget to expand our belief systems. I guess the last thing would be, and if I could tell a short story. So when I was first going to 12-step meetings, I was probably 19 at this time. And there was this meeting we'd go to in this nearby city, and there were probably a couple hundred people there. And there was me and my clown friends. They were all nuts. I was nuts at that time too. Some of them were serious about being in recovery. Some of them weren't. I wanted to change. I wanted to be different. So I'd go to this meeting, and there was this little old guy, and his name was Jimmy. And he walked around, a little hunched over, and he was probably in his 70s somewhere, and walked pretty slow. But Jimmy at that time was 40 years sober. And we used to look at him, and we're like, 6 months, 8 months, 9 months sober. We used to look at Jimmy and be like, man, Jimmy's just a deity, like he's this dude. But he was the only guy, and there's kind of a unspoken hierarchy in the 12 steps. If you've been around a long time, it means something. But Jimmy was the only guy that would go pick up the coffee carafe, and he'd walk around the meeting, and he would fill people's coffee cups. And that selfless act of service was something I paid attention to. And it really struck me, because it should have been me or one of the other guys who was, 6 months, 9 months sober, whatever it was at that time, but it was Jimmy. And one of the things that Jimmy used to say, in addition to that selfless act, he used to say, you know what, if you want to be successful in life, and you want to have a life that you love, and you feel like it's worth living, and you want to get up every day and enjoy it, you have to learn how to stay small. And what he meant by that was approach life with some humility. Approach life with an attitude of, I'm just here to learn. And I've been doing that for a long time. And so many doors have opened up to me because of, walking around life with that attitude. Some of them slam back in my face, and that's fine. But if I'm walking around with that attitude, I'm able to learn, and I'm able to see opportunities and I'm able to take advantage of opportunities. And I thank Jimmy for that. That was 40 years ago for me.
Wow.
And I still remember that like it was yesterday.
That's one of those life lessons that'll never go away. And I think it definitely stayed with you, and now it's going to stay with the Misfit Nation. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Absolutely.
And Daryl, thank you for taking an hour of your life away from your family tonight to hang out with the Misfit Nation and share your journey, share your story, share your work. It's been an amazing conversation with you. I know I learned a lot, and I hope the Misfit Nation learned a lot as well.
Thank you, Rich, and thanks, Misfit Nation. I really appreciate everybody taking the time to join. Thanks for having me.
Outstanding. Misfit Nation, as you know, we're a movement, and we're here for you. If you feel the darkness, if you feel those walls caving in, don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Remember, there are people out there that love you, people that will miss you. Do not make that permanent solution. A day tomorrow with you is 100% better than one without. Reach in your wallet, take out that 1-inch piece of paper we tell you to fill out with 3 names on it. Call those 3 names. They want to hear from you. If you want to get help right now, dial 988. Follow the prompts. Someone on the other end of that line will take care of you. If you don't want to call them, contact us, info@themisfitnation.com, Steven@themisfitnation.com, or Jake@themisfitnation.com. We will contact you. We will stay on the line until we get someone close to you in your local area that can give you the help you need so that you too will be with us tomorrow and be on our next show. Until next time, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling, because we are the Misfit Nation.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation show. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all our past episodes and get some of the great Misfit Nation gear for you and your family. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling, because we are Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation.